The Xyrthian explorer, a sleek disc-shaped observation vessel, floated silently above Earth. Inside, the ship's control deck buzzed with quiet efficiency. Commander Varric, tall and imposing with emerald-green skin and reflective black eyes, stood in the center of the room, his arms folded behind his back. He radiated authority as he watched Earth's transmissions flicker across a massive holographic display. "Humans," he muttered, "a species of contradictions. They are fragile yet tenacious, primitive yet resourceful." "Commander!" Technician Lyra's voice interrupted his musings. She scurried over, clutching her datapad as if it might escape her grasp. Lyra was smaller and paler than her superior, her thin antennae twitching nervously. "We've intercepted a peculiar human broadcast. I think you'll want to see this." Varric raised an eyebrow, or what passed for one on his angular face. "Peculiar, you say? Humans do tend to surprise." Lyra tapped her datapad, and the holographic display shifted to show a brightly lit stage surrounded by a cheering crowd. At the center of the stage, humans sat at a long table, shoveling food into their mouths at an alarming speed. The camera zoomed in on one competitor, a burly man with a sweat-soaked bandana and a determined expression. He was devouring hot dogs at a pace that made Varric's jaw drop. "Is this a survival ritual?" Varric asked, his reflective eyes narrowing. "Are they in a famine?" "I don't believe so," Lyra replied, her antennae twitching faster. "The crowd appears to be celebrating." "Celebrating?" Varric repeated, incredulous. "They're applauding the consumption of mass quantities of food? What is this madness?" "I've reviewed the context," Lyra said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "It's a contest. They call it competitive eating." The room fell silent as the Xyrthians processed this revelation. Then, Specialist Nyx, ever the curious one, broke into laughter. Nyx was shorter than Varric, but had a vibrant energy that often got them into trouble. Their turquoise skin shimmered under the ship's lights as they leaned forward, grinning. "This is brilliant," Nyx exclaimed. "They've turned eating into a sport. What's next? A competition for breathing?" Varric scowled, though Nyx's enthusiasm was infectious. "This must have a deeper purpose," he said firmly. "Perhaps it's a test of resilience or preparation for extreme conditions. Humans are known for their strange methods." Nyx shrugged. "Or maybe they're just weird." Varric ignored the comment and turned back to Lyra. "What do we know about the individuals involved?" Lyra tapped her datapad again, bringing up a list of names and statistics. "The reigning champion is a human called Big Tony. He holds the record for consuming 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes. 75, Varric echoed, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That's physically impossible." "Not for humans," Nyx said, their grin widening. "I say we go see this for ourselves." Varric considered the suggestion. Humans had proven to be a species full of surprises, and their resilience often defied logic. If competitive eating truly showcased some hidden strength, it was worth investigating. "Very well," Varric declared. "Prepare for a cultural exchange. We will witness this sport firsthand." 2 days later, the Xyrthian explorer descended through Earth's atmosphere, its shimmering hull reflecting the midday sun. The landing site was a bustling arena on the outskirts of a lively human city. Crowds of spectators milled about, clutching signs and balloons, while the smell of grilled hot dogs wafted through the air. Dr. Melanie Carter, Earth's cultural liaison, stood waiting on the tarmac. She was a no-nonsense woman, with auburn hair tied back and a clipboard tucked under her arm. When the Xyrthians emerged from their ship, she greeted them with a professional smile. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "I hear you're interested in one of our more unique traditions." "Indeed," Varric replied, his voice measured. "We wish to observe your competitive eating rituals and understand their purpose." Dr. Carter chuckled. "Purpose? Oh, you'll see. But I should warn you, it's not exactly a highbrow affair." As they approached the arena, the Xyrthians were bombarded with sensory overload. The crowd's energy was palpable, with spectators chanting names and waving banners. Vendors shouted about hot dog specials, and a marching band played an upbeat tune. "This is madness," Lyra whispered, clutching her datapad. "Why do humans invest so much in such a frivolous event?" "Humans find meaning in the strangest places," Dr. Carter replied. "That's part of their charm." When the Xyrthians entered the arena, they were escorted to VIP seats with a clear view of the stage. On the table sat dozens of plates piled high with steaming hot dogs, buns included. Behind the table stood the competitors, stretching and shaking out their hands like athletes preparing for a championship. "Look," Nick said, pointing. "That must be Big Tony." Big Tony was hard to miss. The reigning champion was a burly man with a larger-than-life personality, waving to the crowd and flexing his biceps. His confidence was infectious, and the crowd roared every time he smiled. "I do not understand," Varric said, his voice tinged with frustration. "What possible evolutionary advantage could this serve?" "Entertainment," Dr. Carter replied simply. "Humans like to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary." The contest began with a bang, literally, as the announcer fired a starting pistol. The competitors dove into their plates, shoving hot dogs into their mouths with speed and precision that left the Xyrthians stunned. "I can't watch this," Lyra muttered, her antennae drooping. "It's barbaric." "It's incredible," Nyx countered, their turquoise face lit with excitement. "Look at their technique, the double dog method, the water dip, it's genius." Big Tony quickly took the lead, his hands a blur as he devoured hot dogs at an alarming rate. Sweat poured down his face, but his expression remained focused. "Doesn't their digestive system have limits?" Varric asked, his reflective eyes fixed on the scene. "Apparently not," Dr. Carter replied with a smirk. "Humans are surprisingly adaptable." The Xyrthians watched in fascination, horror, and awe as the minutes ticked by. Lyra frantically took notes, muttering about calorie intake and stomach capacity. Nyx, meanwhile, cheered alongside the humans, completely immersed in the spectacle. As the final minutes of the contest ticked down, Big Tony maintained his commanding lead, finishing his 70th hot dog with an enthusiastic cheer from the crowd. The other contestants struggled to keep up, some visibly slowing, others desperately dunking their hot dogs in water to ease the process. The Xyrthians were speechless. Well, most of them. "This is magnificent," Nyx exclaimed, practically vibrating with excitement. "Commander, I must try this. I'm certain my superior physiology will dominate this primitive contest." Varric turned slowly to face Nyx, his reflective black eyes narrowing. "Are you suggesting that you participate?" "Absolutely," Nyx replied, standing abruptly. "This is the ultimate test of endurance, willpower, and digestion." Lyra gasped, her antennae rigid with horror. "Specialist Nyx, this is a terrible idea. We don't know how alien food will react with your system. What if it's toxic?" Dr. Carter, who had been enjoying the scene from the sidelines, leaned in with a mischievous grin. "Actually, hot dogs are mostly harmless. Mostly." "That's hardly reassuring," Lyra snapped. But Nyx had already made up their mind. Waving enthusiastically to Big Tony, they called out, "Champion Tony, I wish to challenge you in your noble sport." Tony, mid-bite, paused to look at Nyx. A grin spread across his face as he gestured to an empty seat at the table. "You got guts, little buddy. Let's see what you've got." The crowd roared as Nyx took their place at the table, their turquoise skin glowing with excitement. Plates of hot dogs were hastily brought out for the alien competitor, and the announcer enthusiastically welcomed them to the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest from beyond the stars. Let's give it up for Specialist Nyx." The cheers were deafening. Nyx waved to the crowd, soaking in the attention. Meanwhile, Varric buried his face in his hands. "This will end in disaster," he muttered. The announcer fired the starting pistol again, and Nyx dove into their first hot dog with enthusiasm. However, it didn't take long for things to go awry. The first bite was a revelation for Nyx. "It's salty," they mumbled, their mouth full, "and chewy, and slightly mysterious." "That's because no one really knows what's in a hot dog," Dr. Carter quipped from the sidelines. Despite their initial enthusiasm, Nix quickly realized that eating at speed was far more challenging than it looked. Their attempts to replicate Big Tony's techniques were laughable. They dunked a hot dog in water, but let it soak too long, causing the bun to disintegrate into a soggy mess. They tried the double dog method, only to nearly choke when they misjudged their bite size. "Focus, specialist!" Varric barked, though even he seemed concerned as Nix's pace slowed to a crawl. Meanwhile, Big Tony was effortlessly polishing off hot dogs, giving Nix an encouraging nod. "You're doing great, alien. Just gotta find your rhythm." Lyra, on the verge of a nervous breakdown, clutched her datapad tightly. "Nix, stop this madness. You're going to rupture your digestive system." "I'm fine," Nix gasped, struggling to swallow their third hot dog. "Just need more time." The crowd was loving every moment, cheering louder with each failed attempt. Nix, despite their growing discomfort, grinned and gave the crowd a thumbs up. When the timer finally ran out, Big Tony stood victorious with an impressive 76 hot dogs devoured. The crowd erupted in applause as the announcer declared him the winner once again. Nix, meanwhile, sat slumped in their chair, clutching their stomach. They had managed a total of 4 hot dogs. "Specialist Nix," Varric said sternly, approaching the table. "What have you learned from this ill-advised endeavor?" Nix groaned, their turquoise skin slightly pale. "Humans are terrifying." Big Tony clapped Nix on the back, nearly knocking them out of their chair. "You've got heart, alien. Come back next year, and maybe you'll hit double digits." Back in the VIP area, the Xyrthians regrouped to process the event. Nix was lying on a bench, moaning softly as Lyra scanned them with a medical device. "You're lucky your digestive enzymes are so adaptable," Lyra grumbled. "Otherwise, you'd be in serious trouble." "It was worth it," Nix mumbled. "The crowd loved me." Dr. Carter, still amused, turned to Varric. "So, Commander, what do you think of humanity now?" Varric was silent for a moment, his reflective eyes fixed on the cheering crowd. "Your species continues to astound me," he said finally. "You turn the most mundane aspects of existence into extraordinary displays of resilience and creativity. Even something as simple as eating becomes a spectacle of determination." "Or insanity," Lyra muttered under her breath. Dr. Carter chuckled. "We like to think of it as a little of both." Back aboard the Xyrthian explorer, Varric recorded his observations for the High Council. "Humans are a species unlike any other," he began. "Their ability to find joy, meaning, and competition in even the most basic survival activities is both baffling and inspiring. Their resilience is matched only by their creativity, and their appetite, for both food and challenge, is unparalleled." Meanwhile, in the background, Lyra caught Nix attempting to recreate a hot dog with alien ingredients. "Nix, what are you doing?" she shouted. "I'm training," Nix replied, their voice muffled by a mouthful of alien sausage. "Next year, I'm taking Tony down." Varric sighed, turning off the recorder. "Humans," he said to himself. "Utterly ridiculous, and utterly extraordinary.